Well, when I think about like resiliency in our like Indigenous high school students, like that is something that they all come with in spades, and that we are really learning from them, and so humbled to be sharing spaces with them. You know, it's definitely not something that they need experience with, and I think most Indigenous people in this country feel that they have a lot of experience in having to be resilient, and I think that's been a really beautiful part so far, and I feel like we're so early into our program. I can't wait to see how it continues to develop.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson. The voice you just heard belongs to Nahanni Olson. She is the featured guest in Season 4, Episode 3 of YXC Underground. A new mentorship program at the University of Saskatchewan is pairing Indigenous high school students in Saskatoon with U of S students, and Nahanni Olson can't wait to see it grow. She is the coordinator of this new program, and as you'll discover, Nahanni is the perfect person to lead it. The Building Intercultural Resilience Mentorship Program, or BIRM, started earlier this year. The goal is to create meaningful change for Indigenous youth to achieve their goals and better their communities. For Nahanni Olson, she sees the best way of reaching Indigenous youth in our community is through meaningful relationships. Nahanni was an educator with the Saskatoon Public School Division in community schools starting back in 2008. She was also the first ever Indigenous Student Advocate at Bedford Road Collegiate. This year, she has taken on the role of BIRM Program Coordinator with the University of Saskatchewan. The program is in the pilot stage and is partnering with two local high schools, Mount Royal Collegiate and Bedford Road Collegiate, to connect Indigenous high school students with university students. One of Nahanni's focuses so far with BIRM has been finding university students who want to give back to their community through this mentorship program. Students like
Danse, Onimi do Nepiaisko Nitsigasun. My Cree name is Dancing Leaves Woman. My English name is Jocelyn Chief. I'm from Onion Lake Cree Nation, and I currently reside just outside of Saskatoon. I graduated from Bedford Road. I went there for 4 years, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the teachers, I loved the students. I also loved being a part of BRIT, and I thought that this would be a way for me to give back to the school, give back to the teachers, and help support their current students. I think with their Indigenous students specifically, what I noticed when I went there was a lot of them didn't have people their own age or a few years older to really look up to for a good and healthy support system. And I feel like I can provide them as a good role model for them. I live an alcohol and drug-free life. I work hard in my studies, and I help maintain healthy relationships between my friends and my family. And I would like to show them that despite being Indigenous and going through intergenerational trauma, that these things are achievable.
showing Indigenous students that anything is possible and instilling that belief in them is something Nahanni is very passionate about. That passion comes through clearly in the first part of our conversation. We met in the University Bowl on campus on an unseasonably warm November day and found a bench to sit on and chat. Spend 5 minutes with Nahanni and you feel like you've known her for years. She listens intently, she is kind and caring, and is a big believer in the power of relationships, especially when it comes to Indigenous youth. I started our conversation by asking why she thought Saskatoon needed a mentorship program like BIRM.
So the last 4 years, I've been working out of Bedford Road as the Indigenous Student Advocate, and which is a really incredible position, and I love doing that work. My sort of where I felt that there was that need was that it's like so much. There's so many areas that you have to hit to support Indigenous youth. You know, like there's the mental health piece, and then there's the community piece, and there's the culture piece, and there's the education piece. There's post-secondary. There's, you know, there's housing. There's so many pieces to it, and then so to have when I saw this opportunity where I thought I can really focus on this post-secondary piece and how we transition and how we help our Indigenous students, not just transition, but to like actually just see themselves going somewhere beyond high school. And so that's really what drew me to it. And that I was raised to like have that belief that it wasn't like the assumption was that I was going to go beyond high school. I was going to get, you know, explore a career. I was going to university. Those were the assumptions that I was brought up with. And then when I started working with Indigenous students in high school, it's like you realize that their assumptions about themselves and from the community that they live in is that they might graduate high school. So like changing those assumptions that they have about themselves, and then I guess challenging those assumptions that they face.
That must have been, well, like what was that like when that became clear to you at the high school level, that the expectation isn't, okay, well, one day you'll go to university. It's oh my gosh, it will be great if you could just graduate high school. What was that like for you?
Well, you know, actually what happened was this was years before that, when I was teaching kindergarten at the Confederation Park School in the Cree Language and Culture program, Wokotowin School now. We had these like what were called literacy walks. So administrators would come and they would go through the classrooms and they would see like what we were doing for literacy and we were engaging literacy in our classrooms. Anyway, I didn't think too much about it. I was just doing my regular thing, and I had this administrator come through, and they were my grade 8 teacher. And she recognized me and she said, "Oh, Nahanni, you made it." And I was like, it just it sat with me, and I processed, and I realized, oh, your assumption was that I wouldn't make it, right? So that's actually where it started, was that even like myself, and I never thought twice about my outcome. I never thought twice that I wouldn't graduate or that I wouldn't go to post-secondary. That the people that were like, you know, my teachers and people in the community again were like, that was not what they were assuming about me. They were assuming the opposite. Like, oh, that was the surprise. It was like, oh, you made it. And I thought after all these years, and you feel like so much has changed about our community perceptions of Indigenous people, that like, that is still such just a prevalent belief that we have about Indigenous youth. Is like, hopefully they make it.
Were you hearing, that's quite a story. Thank you for sharing it. But it's like, oh.
Yeah, like, you know, it sounds terrible. You get kind of used to those comments when you become successful as an Indigenous person. Like you get used to people like that surprise, I guess, like, oh, you know, like for instance, my sister is a judge, and we were just had a big birthday celebration for her, and we checked into the hotel, and she showed her ID, and they said, oh, you're a judge. So, you know, and it's still like those are kind of she said like, oh, did you notice that? And I was like, oh, is that what they said? Yeah. Oh, she was so surprised. You're a judge? It's like, why are you surprised that I'm a judge? You know?
So with this mentorship program then, when you're working with high school students, and because you've been working in high schools for so long, how challenging is it to get students to go beyond that and to see themselves as not only graduating high school, but then coming to a place like the University of Saskatchewan or wherever? How hard is that, Nahanni?
I think it really depends on, obviously, I guess, their support system that they have already at home or in their communities. And it really depends on their experience that they've had in schools. So if they've had even one person in their life that's believed in them and made that assumption about them, that yes, you have the capacity and you have the potential to do whatever you want to do, it makes such a huge impact. It really does. But, you know, and it just boggles the mind that there's kids still who have never had someone say that to them in their lives. And there's teachers doing really incredible work and being such advocates for their students and supporting them, but there are still people who work in these systems that are not, right, and they're still causing damage, or they're still holding that status quo of that maybe you'll graduate kind of attitude.
One of the things I was curious to ask you about is the resiliency part in the BIRM program. How important is that, not only in terms of the students that are graduating high school, but also with the university students that are going to be involved in mentoring these students? I love the word resiliency, and I'm just curious, like, what it means to you.
Yeah. Well, when I think about like resiliency in our like Indigenous high school students, like that is something that they all come with in spades, and that we are really learning from them, and so humbled to be sharing spaces with them. It's definitely not something that they need experience with, and I think most Indigenous people in this country feel that they have a lot of experience in having to be resilient, and I think that's been a really beautiful part so far, and I feel like we're so early into our program. I can't wait to see how it continues to develop. But with these university students and coming in, and it's like I've witnessed that like breath coming out of their bodies as they realize just how incredibly strong and resilient these youth are.
What does that look like?
I think like literally you can see someone being like a jaw drop, or like they like lose their breath, or freezing in time, just knowing, like listening to the stories of these young people, or listening to their experiences. And it's because I think that they take it for granted. A lot of people who come up in this province, especially as like white presenting, or as settler Canadians. I think there's this, which we have quite a few students who have said, like, I had no idea that this is what like Indigenous people have gone through, or that our Indigenous students are facing every single day. So it's like that veil coming off, right? Like, which is really cool. It's really powerful, and I really have so much respect for these students who are putting themselves, like the university students who are making like this. We have to be very vulnerable. To say, like, I had no idea.
That's a really good point, because I think for a lot of people, and I know sometimes I've struggled with this too, you feel embarrassment that you didn't know this, and then for these university students to say, yeah, I didn't know this, and yet they're considered the mentors, and yet there's still so much for them to learn.
And I think that's really something that I've tried to put at the front of like building this program together, is that and we're building it together. Like, in no way do I see myself as like the like chief person who's like designing what we do every day. It's like, when we sit together in this circle, like what are we all working towards, and what do we all need to learn? And like I've really tried to lead with that with our mentors when I first met with them, before we met our students, that like this is not a top-down situation where they're coming in and they've got all the skills and they have all the knowledge and they're going to pass that on to the students. That like we're going to learn as much, if not more, from these students than we're going to be teaching them.
Why was that approach to education so important for you, to set the tone right away? Why was that important to you?
I think that, especially when you work with marginalized people, there's obviously this sort of default to have a savior mentality, or to have a like superiority, an idea of superiority, which is just very false. And when you work with, what I found working with Indigenous youth all these years is, if you want to engage them and you want them to buy into what you're doing, you have to respect them, and you have to show them that they do have a place there, right? What they're bringing, their experience and their knowledge and their lives, is as rich and as valuable as what you're trying to share with them, and providing, I guess, that seat at the table.
Empowerment.
Yes.
Yeah. It just reminds me so much of where we work at Sherbrooke. Our CEO is she calls herself a chief empowerment officer. And that was such, when I started there 5 years ago, I found that so refreshing that she was, it wasn't a top down. We're, let's empower each other and let's go forward that way. Yeah. And it's just, to me, that just makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, it's not always how things are run with youth or in schools or, these are institutions that we've been running for the past 150 years or whatever that haven't really changed all that much despite the fact that our population that we're serving has changed so immensely. And even in the last 10 years, the needs and the diversity of the students that we're working with is just so incredible, and it's so vast that you can't expect to have one size fit all or to have that top down.
What changes have you seen in the last 10 years in working in the schools? You're giving me a look right now like, oh, this changes.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I still feel that I'm a young teacher. I've been in the systems for like 12 years, but it's incredible to see how much has changed even in that time. And it's really, I think it's what happens as we see identities and diverse identities being recognized and acknowledged. So even when you look at gender and sexuality in youth, like when I first started 12 years ago at Mount Royal Collegiate, you didn't have, I think we had a GSA, like a Gay Straight Alliance club, but there wasn't this huge spectrum of identities. It was sort of like you're gay, you're straight, or you're an ally, it was very narrow. And now it's just this incredible spectrum of identities, and that students they bring that with, and they've always been there, right? But that we are just acknowledging and we're recognizing them now, but it certainly does make the job of running a classroom or running a program more complicated, right? Because in a good way, because those people obviously deserve their acknowledgement and their the things that they need as well, which I don't think historically they have been given.
I was curious to ask if, as an educator, it's you have to stay on your toes, don't you, and stay up to date with everything.
I mean, you don't. You should.
You should, yes. And that's a very good point.
Yeah, and I think that you, if you don't, you will, you'll pay for it in other ways. That's the thing. And even when I think about like diagnoses of something like ADHD, it's like when I first started, very rare, and then now I feel like even when working with university students, and so many of the students that I met and interviewed, they led with that. Well, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and the idea that like in this past few years, we've gone from like the stigmatization of things like ADHD or learning disabilities or sexual identities to now that's something we lead with in our introductions of ourselves it's really incredible. And if that's the thing, if you get to know these things and you embrace them and you make space for those things in your program or in your classroom, whatever, like it's so worth it, because those people will actually show up and they actually are engaged, and they actually, when you see yourself in that space, then you can contribute to it, and you can, you gain so much more from it as an educator than trying to that one size fits all or square peg round hole.
You are listening to episode 3, season 4 of YXC Underground. My name is Eric Anderson, and my guest is educator, advocate, and BIRM program coordinator, Nahanni Olson. You can follow and listen to YXC Underground on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the website, yxcunderground.com, or wherever you find your podcast. And don't forget to tell your friends about the podcast and leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. You can also follow YXC Underground on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and that's where you'll see some lovely photos of Nahanni taken by my friend, Rana Andres. What makes a good mentor? That's a question I've been asking myself a lot lately as I'm part of a U of S alumni mentorship program that started just this month. I've never been a mentor before, so I was eager to get Nahanni's thoughts on the subject. Another person who was eager to talk about the qualities of a good mentor was Jocelyn Chief, who we heard earlier from in this episode. Not only is she a mentor in the BIRM program, but she was a student at Bedford Road Collegiate when Nahanni was the school's Indigenous Student Advocate. When I spoke with Jocelyn, she couldn't say enough wonderful things about Nahanni and the role she played in her academic success. She also shared a story that I think shows Nahanni's strengths and convictions as an Indigenous role model.
She helped me with a lot of things, actually. She actually is the one that influenced me to start wearing ribbon skirts on campus and within classrooms. Before that, I didn't see that. I didn't see ribbon skirts being worn on the daily basis. With my family, we just wore them to ceremonies, and then when I started seeing Nahanni wear them, I asked my parents, like, are ribbon skirts something you can wear on the daily basis? And they said, yeah, you can wear them anywhere. So then I started doing that, and it's all because Nahanni did that. Nahanni broke through and wore ribbon skirts in a place that I had never seen them before.
In the final part of our conversation, Nahanni shares why today's Indigenous youth are so inspiring and how success will be measured in the BIRM program. I started by asking Nahanni what she looks for in a mentor.
Well, I definitely lead with family relationships. That's how I see the mentor-mentee relationship is as, and I think raised as a Cree person, that is how we review all of our relationships, is through this lens of kinship and wakotoin. How do we relate to one another? And that's really how I approach the mentors that I sought out as well. Is you can just sense that in a person. I think the openness to develop a relationship, to develop a deep relationship with somebody. And when I was leading up to training these mentors, that's something that I wanted to put at the forefront as well, is that we treat each other as family. So, when I work in schools and I have high school students that come into my program or are involved in whatever I'm doing, I don't see them as students outside of myself. They become my family, so they're like my nieces and my nephews. And these mentors, the same thing, depending on their age. Some of them are not much older than high school students. I treat them like my nieces and nephews, or my cousins, or my brothers and sisters. And I think that that's such a powerful relationship, because it allows you to not criticize, but you can give feedback to your siblings in a way that's very direct, but it always has love with it. That's the thing. So I used to say caring, but I always meant love. And now I'm just very upfront about the fact that I lead with love. Everything I do is I lead with love for these kids, and that's for my mentors too. I love my mentors too. I love if that's the foundation of our relationship. When you have a relationship that's built on love, you can do those things. You can call somebody out, right? You can provide really structured feedback to them, or you can push them to do something or to try something new. And yeah, it was really important to me that the people that I was meeting and interacting with, they sort of bounced back with that, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And like you said, when you lead with love, and when you have that, I like the analogy of, in terms of, they're your nieces and nephews, they're your family. And when you are family, sometimes you have conflict, but at the core of it is you love that person, and that opens up so many more possibilities, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's just that safety that's created, when you have, because these students that we're working with, they do have stories, and some of the stories are really hard and really heavy and really difficult. And if you can create that space for them to feel safe and accepted and not judged by those stories and by those experiences, then again, it's that's how you get that engagement piece and that empowerment piece. So yeah, definitely you gotta have I don't know if you've seen the movie, oh my gosh, what's the movie? Okay, you don't have to put this in, like, obviously edit this out. Shit. But he's like, it's such a great scene because they're eating waffles at this restaurant, and then he's like, what's that movie called? It's got Maya Rudolph and the guy from The Office.
I don't know.
What's his name? And then the guy. Anyway, so there's a scene there at this restaurant, and they're talking about their the marriage. He's talking about his marriage and how they're like, how have you done it? How have you made it all these years? And they have all these children that they've adopted, and it's like, how do you've gotten through these difficult times with like all this diverse kids, and the struggles they've had with with having their own children, and he's talking about how none of that matters and he's like building this house out of waffle pieces, and if you have the love, and he's pouring syrup all over it. And it's like the love gets in and it fills in all of those gaps and it holds it all together. And that's really what but it's always stuck. That has always stuck with me. And I really believe that, like, especially these kids, and I hate to, play into any stereotypes or anything, but truly a lot of these kids don't have a lot of love in their lives. And, that's like definitely, this inheritance of the colonial violence that we live with, is that they might not have family. They might be separated from family. Their family might be in another place, or they might be in prison, or they might have addictions. So if we can, pour that love on them when we have them, that how strong that they can become. Yeah.
That was really nice. That was good. That was really and
there.
Yeah, no, we got there. That was good. So then when you must be a good judge of character, because you are trusting these university students to show these high school students love and form like a really meaningful relationship. Like you're entrusting them, you're empowering them, aren't you?
Yes, I hope so. I hope I'm a good judge of character. It was honestly, when I'm like the people that were drawn, I have actually the student who you're talking to, Jocelyn, she always teases me because I'm always saying creator's plan. Whenever something happens and it's not the way we kind of planned it, it's creator's plan. So we don't really get a choice in how this happens, and it's the best thing to happen. And these university students that have signed up for this program are just like the most incredible people. And when we were interviewing and meeting them, it was listening to their stories. I just thought, how can we? It just showcased how we can be so different, and we can have such different backgrounds, and we have such different upbringings, and we are still the same, right? And we're still connected, and that all of them are driven by the same beliefs, and they want to help, they want to give back, they want to, make a difference, and they want to learn more. So that really is they all have that in common. So I don't know if I'm a great judge of character, but I definitely have been very lucky with the people that I've been able to work with. Yeah.
I know the program is in its infancy, but when will you start to see that that it's working?
So this is something that's very difficult for teachers and educators, because I've taught you the math lesson, and you can learn, how to do the math now. It's a lot of the time it's instant results what we do, or it's like over the course of a semester. So when I first started as an advocate at Bedford, this was in 2017, I was like so hard on myself, like, oh my gosh, there's not enough an impact, and more kids should be engaged, or more kids should be coming back to in their class, or doing better in school. And I had to really sort of shake myself up and get rid of that mindset that we need instant results. And my sister actually really helped me with that, because she's working with people in the justice system that have gone through the education system, and they've gone through the child welfare system, and they've gone through all these other systems, and they're adults now. And so she said, you don't know how many people that I've seen in court that have said to me, if I wouldn't have turned around, or I wouldn't have stopped myself, or I wouldn't have made this choice if I didn't have that one person back in grade 6 who said to me, you don't have to do this. So that really changed my expectations of when will I know if what I'm doing is effective or working, and that I might not ever see the results of what I'm doing with these kids. Like I might not ever know if the time I spent with Johnny made a difference in his life. And I just have to sort of trust Creator's plan that relationship or that experience that we share has planted a seed. So that's sort of, I stopped thinking like looking for results and sort of just changed into believing that I was planting seeds everywhere. And then what happened was 4 years after I started at Bedford, like you could see there were plants. I didn't even know that were growing, right? Like, but I would run into somebody else years later and oh yeah. And like, so just understanding like this program itself, this mentorship program, you can see it working right away in like those interactions. Right? So that's an instant result. But for me, when the result is or the success is measured by, I guess, when we sort of change those, it's hard to measure when you change those belief systems that we're carrying and that students are carrying around with them as to where they can see themselves or their worth. And, that's partially measured through things like people who are attending post-secondary or what happens to people after high school. It's partially measured by that, but I think again it's really hard to measure because it's really about a belief and it's how you see yourself, and that happens mostly through conversation and through experience with students years down the way. But yeah, there's measurable outcomes as well. So when my time at the high school that I was working at, like when I first started there, that their graduation rates were, very, very low for Indigenous students. And then after 4 years of working there, that we had increased it to like an exponential amount, right? So and then I think we will see that. And I really believe that if we can, it always kind of comes down to the people paying for these things. If they can believe and trust this process and let it have time for those seeds to start to sprout and start to grow, then you will see those same outcomes, seeing things like the improvement in the community outcomes. Those will come with time, but it does take time.
May I ask you a personal question?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Nahanni, why does this work mean so much to you?
That's a really good question. I don't know that it's personal. I think...
I wasn't expecting that for an answer.
Yeah, I think that it's... I don't know. It just feels right. It feels... And honestly, it's something I'm very good at. And I tell kids that all the time too. Like, when they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do, like... after I graduate, it's like, I don't want to be a doctor or a teacher, because like a lot of the time there's only like 5 jobs that they see themselves doing or that they think exist. And I always say like, well, what are you good at right now? Like, what have you done that's made you go like, and you haven't had to try too hard at it. It kind of comes naturally to you. And you've gone like, oh yeah, I'm good at this. Or like, I learned that really fast. And that's, this morning we were meeting with our team here at the university, and our cultural advisor, Bob Badger, he was giving us all superpowers. And so he said, and it was so nice to hear from him. And he said that my superpower was like kindness and caring and this work with youth. And I really do believe that, like, it's something that I'm really good at, is connecting with young people. And, it makes me feel good. I guess that's the most selfish reason that I could have for like doing this work.
But I think that's right, because I was going to challenge you for a second, because you're obviously so passionate about doing this that's why I thought like this would be personal for you. But you bring up a good point in terms of like your superpowers. It fits perfectly in your role, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely. And like I said earlier, it's not, I don't think I'm a very good teacher in a lot of ways, but I've always been an expert relationship builder. And I think that part of the passion comes from that sense of, I guess, justice, or sense of, believing in these students knowing that they deserve they deserve to be in every space that they're in, and they don't get taught that, so, and letting them know that, giving them a voice, like giving youth a voice and letting them know what you're feeling. You're not crazy, you're not telling yourself lies, because they'll say oh, well, that person was following me around, but it probably was nothing. Or oh, well, that person they told me to go into construction, even though I want to go into Indigenous studies at university. It's those aren't lies. Those aren't false things that you're believing. It's these are all, okay, this is going to make sense in a minute.
For the record, Nahanni just turned to me and stared at me straight in the eye. So, okay.
I swear to God, what I'm saying is that I remember a couple years ago, maybe it was my first year as the advocate, and I was as Indigenous people working in systems, colonial systems, it's exhausting, and it really drags you down, and you kind of go why am I here? What am I doing this for, when this system is not made for us? And something I love about my job working with youth and not being a teacher is that I kind of get to go on rants. And I think I was ranting about this because I want them to understand they live those experiences all the time too. They feel that weight all the time too. So they see me and I'm able to talk about it. I'm able to name it in ways that maybe they're not able to. And the student said to me well, yeah, we'll keep showing up, the students. We'll keep coming. We'll keep showing up. And she said, and then when we get there, we're going to burn those systems to the ground. And I was yeah, that's why I'm here, and that's what kind of what keeps me going and keeps me able to do this work too, is that this next generation of young people is so incredible. They're so strong and they're so fearless, that we are sort of building them up to do this, to take these systems back, or to burn them down and create new systems that work for them. So I think that's a roundabout way.
It must be exciting for you to be a part of this.
It really is, because like I said, there's a feeling, I guess maybe is imposter syndrome. There's imposter syndrome. There's just beliefs that you feel you inherit from people, and when you work through these systems or you walk into the store or whatever, that you don't belong there, or these systems are not for you. And so I think I come from a generation of acceptance and assimilation. So we were we're going to make our way through by acting as white as we can, or not making any waves and not causing any trouble. And then now, and then we did. And actually, a few, maybe 2 years ago, I had these young people now, they don't accept that, right? They're wait a second, these systems are meant to oppress us, and this is how we're going to dismantle them. And we're not asking for permission. We're going to go and do that. And I'm that, I just think that's so incredible. I was telling this young woman that I think she might be in her third year university now, and I was telling her that I just love watching you young people now. I'm not that old, okay? I'm 38 years old. I'm young myself, but I was this is so cool. I'm so proud of you young people these days. And she's well, you carved the path for us. And I was I didn't. That was the generation before. I'm not old. I'm right there with you, sis. But no, it's true. It's incredible to see just how empowered and how confident and educated and incredible these young people are. Yeah, it's exciting to be a part of it.
It has been exciting speaking with you today. I like I told you before we got rolling, I was slightly nervous to speak with you because I've heard so many amazing things about you from my wife and my friend Leslie Walters, and yeah, they're correct. It was so wonderful to speak with you, and I wish you the best of luck with the mentorship program, because I think it's going to be awesome. And like you said, you might not see the results right away, but like you said, you take the big picture and look at it the long road, and it's going to have success. So, thanks for meeting me today on a beautiful Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it's thanks for asking questions and being interested, and I think it is exciting to be part of a project like this that's never been done in our province, I believe, connecting university students with Indigenous high school students. And it's really exciting to be. I'm not a planner. That's another reason I'm not a very good teacher, is that I'm not very good at long-term planning. So I'm so excited to see what we build, like by the end of the year, and what skills and goals that these young people will see themselves doing and be able to achieve together. And so everyone listening should follow us on social media. I don't know if you're gonna ask me that, but BIRM, BIRM USask on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll be recruiting people in the spring again to become mentors. And I hope to expand the project. Like, I think that there's going to be a lot of interest moving forward for sure, and I'd love to have mentors in every school in the city, eventually. But I definitely will need like many copies of myself to get there. But yeah, I'm really excited to be developing it and see where it goes for sure. So thanks for your time as well.
No worries at all. Thank you, Nahanni.
Thank you.
My thanks to Nahanni Olson for taking the time to be on the podcast and sharing her story. And like you heard Nahanni say, you can follow the BIRM program on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're wondering what the movie was called that Nahanni and I could not remember for the life of us, it's called Away We Go. And Jim from The Office is in it. How could we forget Jim? He's like the best one. This has been episode 3, season 4 of YXC Underground. My name is Eric Anderson. I'm the host, editor, and producer of this local independent podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow and listen to YXC Underground on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the website, or wherever you find your podcasts. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. Follow YXC Underground on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and that's where you'll see some wonderful photos of Nahanni taken by Saskatoon photographer and my friend, Rana Andres. I want to thank Danger Dynamite for all of their wonderful work on the website, and I want to thank my cousin Andrew Dixon for creating the original theme music for YXC Underground. And a quick note that we have some really cool YXC Underground merchandise coming out just in time for the holiday season, so be on the lookout for that on social media. And a big thanks to Motif Marketing for helping me out on that front. Before I go, I would like to acknowledge that these interviews were conducted on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. YXC Underground is a production of the Salthammer Production Company. My name is Eric Anderson. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon, Saskatoon.